The problem of seasonal power output shifts, difficulties in optimizing ideal daily schedule to light, and temperature shifts throughout the year. In winter, I can leverage cold. I can open the windows and therefore induce alertness. In summer, I cannot really do this. Instead, the heat seems to act as a threshold for my power output. If I just say power output is basically how mentally powerful I am at a certain point in time, which seems to be the main threshold for productivity, one could say. Now, there are so many variables to this, and I want to now discuss a couple of them. One is light. Light, to a certain extent, is just sunlight. Or not just sunlight, of course it's also indoor light these days. Now, actually when I was young, it wasn't. Kidding. Now, as the sun goes not throughout the year through different stages, but the Earth rotates around the sun and also has this incline. It rotates around the sun, and then it also, how does actually the seasons come into play? Oh yeah, it rotates, but then, oh yes, the Earth turns and it rotates. So the revolution around the sun is responsible for the seasons and the rotation for day and night, which unfortunately, to my ego, I had to look up. Now, because this is happening, there's a shift in sunlight exposure during the day, but also during the seasons. During the day, it is mostly day and night, and therefore the sun marginally gets less light, or the Earth gets less light of the sun marginally, or a certain area, in this case the area in which I live, and then around the year, there is also basically the overarching theme of getting less sunlight and more sunlight. So basically the sun hours change compared to the non-sun hours. And also the morning and the evening hours might change, at least how long they last. Now, this then causes basically effects. One of these effects, one might say, is a temperature shift. In winter, the average temperature is lower. In summer, it is higher, at least on the northern hemisphere. Now, if I now try to optimize my daily schedule towards light exposure, let's just say, and I try to follow Andrew Huberman's recommendation of getting sunlight in the morning, basically within the first 60 minutes, I think, after waking up, then what does this mean? Is it like when I wake up at 6 in winter or at 6 in summer? And if in winter the sun is only out for maybe 8, 9, 10 hours and then it might be cloudy, then I get less sunlight exposure. The question is then, does my body account for this? Does my body know in which time, does my body know the position of time in year? Does my body, in other words, account for the seasonality? And if so, if light is inducing alertness, is it inducing more alertness in summer because there is more light? And if less so, is it inducing less alertness in winter? In other words, do I sleep more in winter than I sleep in summer? Or apart from what would be actually true in this case, let's just say in terms of my data, what would be the resulting optimization, the ideal optimization that comes out of this? Should I now optimize my day for the specific hours? And then additionally, I would also have to account for the time shift that occurs if my region switches to summertime. Should I therefore kind of optimize for standing up at the same time? Should I over the seasons or over the year have then a slightly switching time? Should I stand up at sunrise? But if I stand up at sunrise, then my sleep hours over the year kind of vary all the time because, well, the sun hours and the night hours vary all the time. Or should I instead optimize my daily schedule towards basically daily repeatability throughout the year, which then also means that I am kind of running a desynchronization with the outdoor environment because the outdoor environment is then desynchronized? Or is it maybe only true that if I expose myself to the sun every now and then, that my circadian clock is still synchronized, but I then run on a kind of independent schedule, which is then my time-based schedule that happens to be the 24 hours of the day? So many questions. First of all, it seems to be the case, according to Andrew Huberman, at least what I remember, is that there is the overarching yearly adaptation also happening. So it seems to be the case that the body has a slowly integrating function or system where it compares the sun hours. It compares basically the sun hours from one day to the next. And now one might also assume that if I only am out 10 minutes, 20 minutes in a day, then the intensity of the sun is also taken into account. and then also kind of averaged out to a certain extent, because if it's cloudy on one day and sunny on the next day, then it's like if my body would be then coming to the conclusion that it's like, oh, cloudy, it must be winter, and then switches to winter mode, whatever this would result in, and then switches to summer mode because it's sunny now and it's also a little bit warmer on this day. Probably also not how it works. So the assumption maybe, or the most useful assumption might be that the body kind of knows already, and the body has already systems implemented to kind of optimize for this. Therefore, maybe also because it would be a huge cost to not sleep that much in summer and to sleep more in winter. I mean, there might be something like this going on where I would just have more energy for a couple of months actually. So my body would have, to some reason, so either my body would not allow me to work out as much and use as much of my body in order to cap basically the regenerational need of my body, or the other option would be that in winter, so basically the one option would be that my body is running a cross-year schedule of regeneration, which would include kind of sleep deprivation in summer and catching up on this lost sleep in winter. Or the other thing would be that my body runs a schedule that is kind of independent of this. It kind of knows the point of the year, but at the same time, it then also still tries to optimize for a certain amount of sleep hours. But then if I take a look at just a week, then it also seems to be the case if I let my body decide how much he would like to sleep, or it would like to sleep, then it also changes it a little bit. Sometimes I sleep 6 hours, sometimes I sleep 7 hours or 9 hours or something like this. At least if I give myself the chance to do this, or if I give my body the chance to do this. And so this results in the problem of seasonal power output shifts, because, well, how do I then optimize my workout routine for this? Should I now have an alarm clock which is always basically exactly at sunrise, or 10 minutes after sunrise, or 1 hour after sunrise? Should I then get out? But this, of course, over the year totally switches up my schedule all the time. By a couple of minutes, it adds a couple of minutes, and then it detracts us a couple of minutes as we come to winter again. And this seems to be just a ridiculous optimization problem that, at least to my knowledge, is not solved by me, at least.